welcome back to another episode of the Manhattans Project. I'm Jenny Allen, Marketing Manager, and your new host. I'm joined today by Business Development Managers, Charles Schwenger and Miran Baric. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely.
And cheers to a new episode of the Manhattans Project. So today we're going to talk about various paths to the cloud, some best practices, and a few tools that 10th Magnitude can provide your business to make the process go as smoothly as possible. So Charles, you've been with 10th Magnitude since pretty much its inception. What's the most common pain point you hear about from clients?
I hear a lot about people just wanting to, get out of their data center. And Azure's this changing, morphing thing. So a lot of customers continue to say, we don't know what we don't know. That's probably the most that I hear from folks.
Interesting. So how have you seen cloud and Microsoft Azure as a whole kind of evolve over the past few years that you've been here?
Well, it's interesting. I noticed a lot of initial platform services that were out there, and I think Microsoft has really started to adopt the whole method around not just point services, but what is the solution and what is the platform as a whole. So not only just the infrastructure components,
right.
But also those existing platform components. So I tend to look at it a lot like having the base layer of infrastructure, and then what are all the different Lego blocks that we can put on, whether that be analytics or IoT, just different components that you can really get a lot of value out of.
Got it. Miran, would you agree?
I would. It's interesting because what companies are beginning to realize is that they built out this platform and they can now get so much out of it that they can actually begin to build new business revenue lines for themselves. So it doesn't just become an internal IT thing, but it becomes actually a revenue generator for them. That's really where the power comes into it. Definitely. Because they begin to realize this isn't just a cost anymore, it now becomes something that we can begin to make money from.
Definitely, for sure.
And that also relates back to kind of the first question of, what do you hear the big pain points from, right? And if you kind of consider cloud and platform as a way for your business to transform technology from a cost center into that revenue generator, it really makes a powerful statement.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be a good selling point for sure to the powers that be. So Miran, you're relatively new to 10th Magnitude, but you have a lot of IT experience under your belt. We like to use the term, quote, data center transformation. It sounds really intense, and I think a lot of clients are reticent to change and are intimidated by the cloud. So what is one of the biggest myths or misnomers that decision makers have about cloud adoption, and how do you help dispel those myths?
Yeah, data center transformation, right? It sounds like data centers, so like the Transformers comes out and there's a big battle against some aliens. But really, the whole point, the biggest misnomer is speed. A lot of companies, and I lived in the private data center world for a while and then into the hybrid world, a lot of companies, they built their data centers over decades.
Right.
Which means, and of course their experience came with decades as well. Now they begin this shift to, we could have what we built over decades, and we can do it in a matter of months, let's say. But not only do we get what we had, but we actually, back to the previous point, leveraging new technologies, new systems that we never thought we could possibly do, and we don't necessarily have a technical debt. We can plug and play some features that we never thought were possible before, that allows us to either create new revenue lines or gain massive efficiencies, which then circles back into this beautiful motion of the technology teams can now become focused on what is going to be useful for business and how they can leverage it, rather than trying to resolve issues like patching.
Right.
Example.
I can imagine there's a lot of these cobbled together legacy systems that you see, but the fact that these companies can, like you said, just sort of plug and play and pick and choose what they want to migrate first, I think is a huge selling point.
Well, a lot of businesses, they don't want to be a data center host, right? They want to be out of the business of being a data center. They want to focus on their core business. Whether you're an ISV or a machinery firm or a water distribution firm or something like that, they want to host data centers.
And Charles got a great point. Businesses don't want to be in a data center game, right? And that's why you have this business, technology, kind of these two silos. The business says this, well, to the technology, well, why shouldn't it become one unit? Why shouldn't it become a profit-making or revenue-generating unit together as part of it? It just so happened that over the 20, 30 years that IT technology has become integral, that, well, here's our product and here's our service, and as a result, and because we have to, we need IT.
Right.
It shouldn't be because we have to have it. It should be, let's leverage it to become something really powerful as part of our business.
Well, extrapolating that into the future, I mean, if you listen to kind of any of the talks that Satya Nadella has been making, a lot of it is how do we turn every single business, no matter what their business line is, into a SaaS product, right? How do we take all this data that we're getting and then resell it? So the idea of, well, technology for us is different, it can never be a revenue generator, is kind of going out the door. We're seeing a big shift in the industry towards, hey, I'm a construction firm and we have all this data that constantly pours in, whether that be from our existing people on the ground that are taking action and building things, or how that translates down into eco-friendly buildings and all that stuff. How can you take that data and then resell it back and actually change technology, fundamentally change technology and make it be a revenue generator for your business?
Right, yeah, it's a fascinating concept for sure. Do you guys ever have to quell any fears of, a lot of people think when you adopt the cloud that they're going to lose their job. So how do you help quell the fears of certain IT folks, generally director and lower, that that's not going to happen and that they're actually going to be able to focus more on projects that matter instead of just keeping the lights on and things running?
Well, the reality is, if they don't, they will lose their jobs because the competitors will take over anyway. There are 100 examples out there in the world where breakout industries, organizations that have disrupted, as they love to call it in Silicon Valley, popular term, but it's true, right? So one has to think, okay, if we don't do this, where will I be in, could be a couple of years, right? We go back to the speed element, which I mentioned earlier. If they're going at such a speed, a competitor can quite comfortably take over, and suddenly you're not going to have a job. And it's not a case of, well, I can just move to another organization or switch. The time has already moved ahead of you. So there's that almost, one can call it fear, right? Which is, it's not fair. The best way to look at it is, it doesn't remove, you're not removed from the job. What you're doing is you're enabling and you're becoming an asset to the business as opposed to a cost. Again, the revenue generation, technology versus business. You're becoming an asset. What you do now becomes something that enables the rest of the organization to go along its path. So rather than try to fix issues and try to be, working on the day-to-day projects, you can now work hand in hand in a DevOps methodology or whatever it might be, and actually be face-to-face with the organization and saying, here's what we want to do, can we do this by next month? Yes, we can, because everything else has been sorted, and my plate is clear to make some innovative decisions.
Definitely.
I think to that point, a lot of it is breaking through the kind of cultural gap. If you think about a lot of folks that have been managing existing infrastructure for so long, they're used to that role, they're used to that job. And so with the entrance of cloud, people say, oh, that change means changing my job, which means that's threatening my job. It's not necessarily that. You look at people and abstract them from that situation, and you can say, well, do you want to be just focusing on burning down your backlog? Right? Do you want to be focusing on doing that maintenance? Or if we can take care of a lot of that with cloud, if there's different ways that we can leverage core components that are taken care of, can you focus your time on innovating? Right? Just like you mentioned, how can you create new revenue generating opportunities for the business? How can you re-platform your role? Not only to be more interesting, because looks doing maintenance. Right?
It's never just it's the necessary evil that came along with IT.
Yeah.
That's you have to do it. And people obviously have to become.
It's getting dumber by the minute. So they're doing just mundane tasks.
Right. And back to this, we generally don't have to quell that fear. Our clients, we work with them because they're already on that path, and they don't know what they know. right? So they really need to, they want to get to that development, and the ones that don't, they generally turn around very quickly as soon as they realize this is the natural reality. This is the evolution point, and unfortunately we have to evolve with it.
Yeah, generally when there is that pushback, it is a matter of kind of weeks of playing with the different systems and how you now think about cloud, how you think about your job before things typically change, and then, geez, then it just accelerates from there.
Definitely. So, in terms of the various clients you've seen be successful at cloud adoption, how does that happen? Like how would a client even start to make that transition, given how daunting it can appear to some?
They call us first.
Yeah.
We have some really cool tools. Yeah. We've developed some proprietary technology in-house, thanks to thousands of deployments over many years, which allows us to take the state of the state and look at the future state. And this technology, through it's interactive, right? We're using dashboard technology so everybody understands what it is, and it allows them to look at what the adoption curve would look like for them. I think that finds a baseline. From there, the conversations do then begin technical, right? What makes sense? Once you establish a baseline, once you can communicate said baseline to the technology teams, which is a different kind of conversation, at least for this stage, and to the business, which are more looking to sort of say, what does this mean for us over the next 1 to 5 years? You look at that and then you say, what makes sense for you as the business? And sometimes it can be as simple as, we have a pressing need. In 24 months, we do not want to be paying any more money for our data center. So help us get there. To another point, which is, we are the technology team or a technology organization, and we want to speed up. Because right now, in this year and the 2020 and for the foreseeable future, it's all about speed to market. And we can help them with that, right? We have the processes in place. But most importantly, we have this adoption dashboard that can help them visualize, which no one else has, and we're really proud of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad you brought up the dashboard. It's been a really powerful tool for us, not only to help clients kind of see what existing translates into what that looks like in Azure, but it also really helps quell a lot of the fears around that transition. And so, for example, traditionally a lot of companies would go out and say, "Oh, help me get to the cloud," and they'd say, "Okay, here's my inventory," and you know, you put it together and run it through the Azure calculator and all those things,
right.
And you pop out this big number, $1 million, $2 million, $10 million. And
terrifying.
for a lot of companies, that's like, well, that's exactly what I'm paying, or if not more.
Yeah.
Then I'm already doing with my data center. Why would I take all the risk of doing that move, right? That's a big thing for a lot of CIOs. You know, I've got 3 years left in this role. Why do I want to incur a big major cost to move us to the cloud? I can get my retirement and whatnot, right? So this tool really allows us to take that in a dynamic fashion, right? And be able to show not just you know, what does this look like if I were to show this in Azure, if I were to look at this in Azure, but also, you know what, let's step back at the big giant number and start thinking about, okay, let's take specific small workloads, small wins, because a lot of this with transformation of that business around IT has to do with building momentum within an organization. How do you evangelize cloud within your organization? So part of that is building those small wins. So whether it be, proving that value, right? So whether that be, okay, I don't want to start with my big giant ERP system that my entire business is running on. How do I start with something small?
Right. What is generally like the low-hanging fruit for a lot of the clients you've seen?
So low-hanging fruit is kind of all over the place. I generally see it falling into something like, you know, backups or you know, my FTP or my file share or something small like that.
Non-production environments, right? Testing environments, things that, funny enough, things that usually sit within the technology sphere, so a sandbox environment, but can take up a huge amount of resources. You know, some of the conversations that Charles and I have is fascinating. They look at this dashboard, and they look at it and go, what's that really big chunk of money being spent? Oh, it's this particular environment. Oh, it's a non-production environment. I'm spending tens of thousands of dollars a month
So
just to keep it running. Yet I only use it once every 2 weeks or whatever. Or it's for our technology team that literally built it a year ago and they've used it 3 times since then. But it exists because it was built. It required time and energy to build it. You don't want to.
They're called legacy for a reason.
Correct, right? And the beauty of it is, of course, is like sometimes, and again, talk about generations, right, or decades of building environments. A lot of organizations built out reporting systems and all these kind of things that maybe only churn out a financial report at the end of the month. Wouldn't it be amazing? And that could be the biggest expenditure they have, and they need it, right? Because at the end of the month, they need that financial data, so they're never going to get rid of that environment. But wouldn't it be amazing if you can go, well, we can take that workload and put it in Azure. It exists, but we can, when it's ready, when you need it, we'll spin it up at the end of the month, and we'll spin it back down at the beginning of the next month.
Well, in addition to that, when you're running it through Azure, just like those Lego blocks that I mentioned earlier, right? If you're pulling this together, you can expose that to your end customers so much easier within Azure than you used to, especially with the entrance of new things like Azure B2C, identity, B2B, things like that. It's really enabled customers to kind of think differently about how they're using their existing applications. And also just from to your point, low-hanging fruit. I've seen it in a number of instances come back to actually help figure out where shadow IT exists within an organization.
Right, that's a huge problem.
That's a big problem for a lot of organizations from a compliance perspective, security perspective. And so being able to say, okay, this is all being managed through your directory and your identity services now within Azure, and being able to plug in all these different pieces, super interesting.
The final point I leave on that question is the dashboard that we built out. It's that wonderful word, it depends, right? But that's what the dashboard allows people to do. It's interactive. So the organization, whether it's business or technology, can have a look at it, or together actually, ideally, look at it and go, even if it's a development environment, this is what makes sense for my organization.
Right.
So it's a typical consulting word, depends, but it really does depend on the customer. We see most of the time it's not production, as I mentioned earlier on, but sometimes they can move a really easy environment, and sometimes they find gaps as well. Hold on, why do we still have an Exchange server sitting in our data center?
Right.
It's not legacy. It has unfortunately wrapped up.
Yeah, and one of the best components about the dashboard, we're actually able to do that for our clients. Either as part of some small Microsoft funded program, some people know it as the Azure Everywhere program, or as part of the pre-sales engagement process. So from a how do we get to this point with this dashboard?
Just a few queries.
I mean, a few queries, 15-20 minutes of customer end time, and then we turn it around in a few days and just have a conversation. Let's start thinking about how we can transform your business and at least get some data behind that, so you can have some good conversations within the organization.
Yeah, it sounds like a really cool tool.
Well, we sum it up as let us help you, right? Help us help you.
This has been a really good chat. I really appreciate you guys joining me, but we do have a little twist to the show now. So
this is my
we've
first
added
one.
a bundle element, and after the break, we're going to play a little game. And as everyone in the office knows, you guys are both in business development, you're partners in crime, pretty much attached at the hip. So we're going to be playing a corporate version of the newlywed game. So,
don't say a corporate version of anything.
Well, yeah, that's true. So yeah, stay tuned, and you'll get to see how well these two know each other. So
Terrifying.
Horrifying.
And Miran, this first question is about you.
Okay.
So, Charles, how many languages does Miran speak?
What do I do?
Hold it up. Oh, buzzer.
Close though. Close.
So, Miran, you speak 4 languages. What are they?
English, That's good. That's good stuff. Croatian, Bosnian, and Serbian. And to be fair, it's actually a little bit of it's unfair because all three are actually very similar. They're just dialects. But because they're separate countries, they're different languages. So I win.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought to count English either. But so Miran, this next question's for you. Charles was an NCAA athlete in which sport?
Okay.
Sorry to embarrass you. It's not an embarrassing sport at all.
That's easy. I'm going to show it.
If those
Excuse my handwriting. Gymnastics floor. Gymnastics floor, right? That's
How did you get that wrong?
Oh, the bar. I knew you were a gymnast. That was close enough.
It was more general.
Yeah,
I'll
gym,
give that
gym.
to you. I didn't say
Yeah,
that
the floor is technically
For those of you that are gymnasts out there, yeah,
Yeah,
you
actually.
get that, okay? You get it.
I'm gonna give that to you.
I need gym.
So nice work on that one, Miran. You're getting it because of a technicality. But the next question is for Charles. Third out of the fourth question. What's Miran's biggest pet peeve?
Even I don't know that.
And you can't write your own name down. All right. So Charles says it's water on the floor / messy bathroom.
Crowded spaces.
Ah! So that's my number one. That's my number two.
There you
A
go.
little bit of an agoraphobe here. So our fourth and final question is for Miran. You guys are tied up. What is Charles's favorite food? You guys have to go to lunch together. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We see you out around the office.
It's a kissing fiat.
Pardon? I like what I'm looking at, Charles. Your sign.
Yeah!
Oh.
Stay!
And Miran's the winner. 2-1.
There you go.
I think,
That game was unfair. He got easy questions.
well, I didn't write them, my producer did, so, just to be unbiased. So anyway, well, thank you guys for joining me, and cheers. And
Thank you.
onward
Cheers.
and upward with this project this year. And yeah, have a great night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, San Diego.